And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to this episode of Down the Garden Path, where each week we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I am Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design for the past 11 years. It is currently a design-only business here east of the GTA in Toronto, Canada, Ontario. Here we go. And with me is my co-host, Matthew Dressing. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. I am Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you, from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. As always, we welcome your questions via social media or emails.
That's right. And we want to thank you, as always, for joining us here down the garden path. And we want you to know that we do release this live show as a podcast. So you can always check out past shows of Down the Garden Path on your favorite podcast app. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to be notified of new content. And please like, share, and even leave us a comment, which we would love. So thank you very much for doing that.
Yes, thank you. Definitely tune in.
And lots of past shows. So as soon as you log it on to your app, you're going to see all of our past shows.
That's right.
Right?
And this show,
Mm-hmm.
what are we talking? Well, it's the last month.
It's the last Monday of the month.
That's right. It's August. So it's August in the garden. And August can be a challenging month. The heat is unrelenting, the weeds are growing strong, and our plants can start to look a little tired or spent. And as gardeners, it can sometimes be difficult to be a little tired and spent, to get a little tired and spent ourselves. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I know I'm working outside regularly.
Yeah.
And it's been a hot one. So tonight we're going to go over some of the common challenges, the challenges of August, what we face and how we're going to overcome them in these unrelenting, brutal, hot months. So
Excellent.
we'll
Yeah. August, we always look forward to August, but then when it gets here, I think we're all like a little gardened out, aren't we?
Yes.
You know, and things start to go wrong, or we're unsure of things.
Yeah.
So it's good to find out what we can do to make it easier.
What we can do so we can just hang out and relax and enjoy August like we always were.
I love that. We've got a message already from Elise. One word for the GTA is water. Oh my goodness. We hope it rains. We need some rain. I don't know where everybody else, all our listeners are from, but here in the GTA and surrounding areas, we need some water.
We do, and it's looked threatening, especially in the afternoon.
And the weathermen have said it's going to happen.
Yep.
They said it was supposed to happen on Sunday.
Yeah, yesterday just gave us, it didn't rain where I was at work, and then I got about 2 blocks to the east, and it had poured for all of like 5 seconds.
Oh, geez.
And everything was soaked. There were big puddles, and it just turned itself off. And it was like, oh, darn.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
More, please come back. So we definitely need some rain. The lawns are looking dry. Plants are looking a little tired. And the wind, it's been windy as well.
Yeah.
It's been a steady breeze. And we know that the wind can be just as drying and desiccating as the sun.
For sure.
So now we got both and heat. So
for sure. So our tips for water, since Lisa's kind of started us off with our first biggest challenge of the season, or of the episode, not the season. Water, remember to water deeply. I think that's our biggest mistake. I think everybody thinks they need to just go out. Even my boys have been watering the vegetable garden with watering cans and just like a little bit of water to each plant. And our cucumbers are not like compared to the last 2 years, cucumbers are really not doing much. So I said, no, we really need the hose. It really don't need to water as often, but we need to really deep water, whether it's our vegetables or our other newly planted trees, shrubs, that perennials. Water less often but deeper, would you say?
I agree completely and exactly. Don't forget about the window boxes in your containers, right? I mean, they're exposed on the sides. They're going to get the sun on their
sides.
They're
tougher though. You kind of almost have to do them more often.
You do, yeah. But don't forget to water them deeply, and don't just when they're dry. Don't just go out and water them and then watch the water come out and walk away.
Oh, true.
Do it and let that soak in a bit. Water that deep and let it soak in, and then come back and give it another watering.
Right. Almost water them twice.
Right. You want to give them a nice watering twice. So the second time you'll notice the water doesn't pour out like it did the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the water those plants, that second watering, they're going to drink. That deep watering, they're going to drink again.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a guest today at the garden center. He came in, there were things all over his tree, was kind of going all weird and brown and patchy here and there. And
which kind of tree?
It was actually a Harlequin maple.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And he said, I've got an irrigation system, and it comes on superficially. So we talked about that, obviously. What
do you mean superficially?
Like it just comes. He had it setting on for like 5 minutes, once a night, kind of thing. And I was like, well, they might need a little bit more. They are kind of established plants you've got there, but and I gave him some recommendations and kind of what we were talking about too. And he looked at his tree, and I said, well, we were trying to figure out what it was. And then we narrowed it down. It was leaf scorch. He was watering this tree, right? But he wasn't watering it deep enough. So it was okay during the spring.
Oh, I thought you said he was watering the leaves.
No.
Yeah. Okay, wasn't watering the leaves.
Right.
Okay.
He was watering the tree. It was only a number of, it was like 5 years old, I think it was. But he had stopped watering it because he let the irrigation water it for 5 minutes for like that inch, or not even really, at 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So the tree was losing so much water to the heat and the environment that it was starting to scorch out.
Right.
Again, he's like, oh, yeah, look. And I showed him some literature, and he's like, that's exactly what's happening. And all the solutions, that's what it is. So that deep watering he was missing, and that yeah, we need deep watering. We can't have like a glass of water or a water bottle, right, and go through for a week before we have water again.
Yeah.
So we got our plants need a nice deep water.
And with trees, I kind of go back to did you sell them a tree bag? Because honest to goodness, I swear those are the best things.
You know what? I showed him a tree bag.
Okay.
And I showed him the root feeder. And he wanted the root feeder. So we bought a root feeder and that nice deep root feeding, and showed him how to do it. He was excited because he knew he was going to get his tree back. So.
Yeah, for sure. And so the tree bags are great. Because I think, as much as we try to say, set your phone or set a timer so that you leave the hose running and then you move the hose from place to place, we're all too busy for that. So I just feel like I've got, 3 or 4 trees that need that amount of water in my yard. So I just move the tree bag. And then many of our past listeners know I'm a bit of a tree bully, watering bully. So then I'll put the bag on my neighbor's tree and then just say, okay, you need to water. They know they need to water. So, you can, even with one bag, you can accomplish a lot.
Oh yeah. Those bags are fantastic for sure.
And even your city trees.
Yeah. Yes. Don't forget about your boulevard trees.
Yeah.
Those are your responsibility.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
For sure. And Bob has written in and he says, I know 2 inches is the magic number, but how do we know if it is enough? I would say it's tricky, and these like 2 inches I think is fine for the lawns, but I don't think that's fine for the plants.
Right.
Do you?
I was going to say 2 inches to 3 inches. That's what I come up with when I think of like watering the lawn or a flatter surface, or but even like window boxes or perennials. Right, their root zones are so much bigger than the 2 inches. So, Bob, you can leave them to dry out slightly in between. Don't ever let them go really bone dry. But you do want to give that whole root zone a nice, deep, thorough wetting. Yeah, for sure. So, and it might be deeper than 2 inches. If you've planted a brand new tree, if you think of the pot, the soil in the root ball, that's like 12 to 18 inches, depending on the size of the pot that you bought.
Yes.
But most of the roots are in the core to the bottom of that pot. So 2 inches won't do it. And the upper 2 inches of the soil, especially when it's exposed, will always dry out to the environment, to the wind, to the sun, to the light inside the house, going to the tropical example.
Okay.
So just, know your plant, know what it does prefer. Does it like to be really wet? Does it like to dry out in between? Is it a succulent or like a money tree kind of thing? Or does it like to be more evenly moist regularly? So just knowing your plant as well. 2 inches, again, we don't know, Bob, what your situation is or what plants you might be referring to or in mind, but 2 inches might, but usually it's the root ball you want to fill in. And it's that volume of water at least once when she's on the drier side, and a second time to get her that water. That second watering is really what she's going to fatten up and unwilt with.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
So hopefully that answers your question.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, if you had another plant or a situation in mind, we'd love to discuss it with you. But hopefully that answers your question.
Excellent.
Speaking
so water, and if we kind of, I don't know.
I think so, but Brian writes in.
Oh.
How do these tree bags work?
Oh,
So
thank you.
I'll throw that back to you.
I know, you're going to throw that back to me. I mean, I know if you drive around, you kind of see them. So they are kind of a double-sided bag with teeny tiny, like you can't even really see the holes, Brian. They're so small. And it zips the one side of it. It has a zip. Both sides have a zipper. So you basically wrap it around the trunk of the tree and literally zip it up. And then on the side opposite, a side of the bag opposite the zipper, at the very top, there's going to be a tag and there's some handles. And there's like a little slit in the bag. And basically you put the hose in that slit and kind of fill the bag up. It's about 15 gallons of water in that bag. But the thing is, it now will fill and kind of compass like the root ball or the base of the tree. But then it takes like 8 or 9 hours to water that tree. So it really gives it a really good deep watering. And so it's excellent. And I was doing some reading about it, just even for newly planted trees, mature trees. I mean, even my son noticed, he couldn't believe how our city trees that we lost a few years ago when the ice storm, and they were ash trees, compared to compared to my neighbors across the street who had their trees replaced at the same exact time. But our 3 city trees are way, like 2 years. You would swear there was 2 years difference in planting.
Nice.
And I said to him, why do you think that is? And he said, because you water your trees. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And really, the water bag is so nice because it's a no-brainer. So like last night I watered one tree, and this morning we took it off and put it on another tree. And tomorrow, if I remember tonight when I get home, I'll put it on another tree. So it really makes it easy.
Mm-hmm. And do you use I know there's a couple different models.
Yeah, I've gotten Tree Gator, which is I think what your garden center sells as well, right?
And I was just going to say to Brian, so Tree Gator tends to be kind of I would almost say industry standard, or like the big name, or the most common name at least. So Brian, if you Google Tree Gator, Gator.
They really need to be a sponsor. We really need a sponsor.
Yeah, we're going to write them. We'll write them at the end of the show. If you look at them, you can see them, and there's lots of great information. But I have to echo Joanne. I mean, they're fantastic. They really are. More people need to know about them. It just takes the ease out of everything.
Because I don't know, everybody, I mean, I leave the sprinkler on and I forget about it, and I've wasted water, that type of thing. So this really helps me. If we have to use water to water our trees, then at least we know it's going to where it's supposed to be. I had a question about the one thing I think I'd like to get is the one that's for evergreens. It's a bit more of a donut than a bag.
And
do you sell that one?
We do. We sell a few of them. The bigger one is more popular. That's like the Gator Junior.
Okay.
Or that's the model that comes to mind. And it's like a big donut. It's really flat.
Yes.
Yeah, it's instead of green, it's more of like a taupey purple kind of color with red accents on it. Yeah, it does the same thing.
Because it is trickier I can't wrap it around my evergreen.
Right.
So I was standing it up and kind of filling it, but then I find that I don't think the pressure, like the water doesn't come out.
Right.
So then I was like constantly, so it took 3 days to water my Dawn Redwood because I'm like constantly having to reposition the bag. And I'm like, okay, this isn't working. So I think it would be worth it to have one of those as well.
Yes. Yeah, they're nice and flat, and you can use them around newly planted perennials because you don't have to like completely surround it, right?
Right.
So they're really neat. The Tree Gator Junior, if you're Googling it, I believe it is. A follow-up question. Chris writes in, just wanted to say hello. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Love your radio show, especially this time of year. Thank you very much, and thanks for tuning in this evening. And are the tree bags expensive? Thanks. I know.
Are they like $30?
Yeah, I was going to say.
$35, I think.
35 is what we sell them for, yeah. So, and they're quite tall when you stand them up. I mean, they're like, what do you say? Would you say 2 feet, 2.5 feet?
Yeah. And they don't go bad. I mean, so,
no.
I mean, I've had mine 3 years now, and I don't see why I would stop using it.
Nope.
Because even I have friends where and I give them to my clients too when I'm selling them trees. And so I had really good friends of mine say, well, my trees are doing great. It's been 2 years. I should give you back the bag. And I'm like, no, you keep that bag. And I said, now you've got your Japanese maple in the front yard. You've got your city tree. And they're like, really? We can use it on that? I said, absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's compared to that $35 compared to how much water I used to just waste down the sewer. Yeah, it's peanuts.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've covered watering. Have we covered
so
watering?
Too. Who knew we could do a whole episode on watering, everybody?
That might have to be another show. Watering,
that's right,
as I make a note.
Right.
So yeah, battling the summer heat and the drought. Definitely watering deep. There's a lot of tools, the tree bags for sure. We're definitely, I think, especially you're a champion of that tree gator.
I
am.
Sure.
Keeping
I am a champion.
Yes, you are. So yeah, that kind of beats the heat and the drought. Just watering deeply. If you water deeply, you don't have to water as frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Roots are smart. They will pull up and they will go where the water is, and then they'll burn out. The lawn is a classic example.
Yeah.
You water shallow, the roots are shallow, and that just basically will stresses them out. So yeah, so water deeply.
Excellent. So the other thing, and you had your show, I missed you last week, but you did a show on Japanese beetles. And
I did.
You did. How did it go?
I thought it went well.
Excellent. It's not up on your podcast, though.
No, it's not.
But it will be this week will be a double week. Hopefully,
yes.
If I can get my act together.
2 new episodes.
2 new episodes will be out this week because we know a lot of people are having issues with the Japanese beetle.
Yes.
I had my own neighbor, I don't know if she's listening, exclaim by she can't believe how many she's getting in her backyard. And she literally is holding a grocery bag full of dead beetles. And I'm like, her yard's not that big. And I'm kind of questioning her further. Yeah, she put 3 traps in her backyard.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do not. So more is not. This is one of those instances where more traps, more is not better, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct. There are lots of them out there. The beetles, they are numerous. They are invading. They are an invasive species. But yes.
She took all mine because I don't have any. So she's got mine.
And she probably does.
Yeah.
Because that's how the Japanese beetles work. So last week I was saying how they all release that scent, that pheromone that we kind of mimic in the traps. And with 3 lures there, which are designed to overpower even a large colony of Japanese beetles, they're getting the signal that when they get that whiff, that there's a massive group.
Right.
Over here, and they're gonna pull in. They usually only do like a 15 to 20 foot, the baggy ones, like a radius of only like 15 to 20 feet, or
which is all you need. So
that's all you need,
yeah.
Right.
So I think some people that buy the one or don't buy them because they think, I'm going to get my whole neighborhood's beetles in my trap, and that's not the case.
No.
If you have one and you have a normal size backyard, your 30 by 50 backyard, one is plenty, right? Because most of that yard is also not garden. So, really you're just pulling from the garden. But in her case, by putting 3 lures in, she's just kind of OD'd on it.
Yeah. Yeah. The concentration of pheromone was like a gravity well. Just with everything, it just drew them all in.
Right.
Yeah, it just sucked them all in because that's all they really look for.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed Matthew's episode when I was away. And if you have any other questions about Japanese beetles and nematodes, and I'm not sure what else you covered. I wasn't listening.
Yeah, no, yeah, we talked. Yeah, you were on the garden walk, and we were going to talk about that.
I was, yes. We'll talk about that near the end of the show. I know we missed it at the beginning, but we will talk. I was away in Buffalo touring gardens, so it was kind of not a vacation. That my designer friend that was with me said it was professional development. So we were on a PD day, or 3 day, or 3. So we were gone for 3 days. So that was fun. So definitely want to share about that. And check out I shared a ton of pictures on social media. So take a look at Instagram or especially Facebook. The Down to Earth landscape design Facebook page has tons of photos. So
yeah. So last week we talked about just trapping them and how the sprays work, and nematodes and chinch bug, because people are buying, coming in and they're looking for nematodes for grubs because they've got the grub damage, but it's actually chinch damage because they do the same damage.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
okay,
we kind of heard about that.
So so that is a good episode, and stay tuned for it shortly this week if you missed it. Excellent. And I think we had another picture. Gary, did someone send us a picture of a plant? I think this is another August heat dilemma. Yeah, Jody's written. Oh, Jody sent it. Oh, we got a picture. Did you know, everybody, that you can email us a photo? So you can email us questions at instudio101@gmail.com. But we love photos.
Yes.
So although we know it's radio and you can't see the photo, but
Yeah.
So this one is leaves. It looks like hydrangea leaves. Some are green and some are very green and yellow.
Yes.
And it's not a variegated plant, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's not
No.
a variegated plant. It's got a good mix. It kind of looks like it's a little bit of everywhere, and on the top of the leaves for sure, or on the top of the plant area for sure. My thought initially is an iron deficiency of some sort.
Okay.
And it's a kind of a close-up of picture, so we can't see everything. But yeah, it definitely looks more of like it's definitely a nutrient deficiency. I would guess iron.
Okay.
By the placement and the interveinal chlorosis of it.
Yes, definitely. You can see all the veins in the leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of it is a nutrient deficiency, but I always love the pattern on it.
Yes, it does.
It is pretty, but
pretty. Can that be corrected quickly, or is it something like what we put on now will help it next year?
yeah. So you can kind of do both. You want to usually add iron in the form of iron chelate.
Okay.
Or chelated or chelated or whatever.
It looks like chelate, right?
It does look like just CHELAT.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say chelate, but
And is that water soluble?
it is water soluble, so you can do it as in water soluble. You can do it as a foliar spray, so you can mix it up and spray it right on. Yes, and I've heard
The
of
one exception where we can spray the leaves?
one of the
Oh,
exceptions
my
where we can
goodness.
spray our
Okay.
leaves. Right.
But then we need a hose end sprayer that didn't have nematodes in it. And yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Or you could mix it in just a clean 1 liter spray bottle. You could
Oh,
do
okay.
it.
Okay.
It might be a little bit more laborious, but
Okay.
you would do it. And that will do that will do a quick, that's going to be your quick fix. So the iron is going to be absorbed. It's going to relieve some of the symptoms and make it look green again and kind of give a boost to the plant. But you do want to mix some into the soil.
Okay.
And there'll be instructions depending on the brand and who's made it for you. It's so many tablespoons per, X square meters and or X square meters or feet. And
Do you work tomorrow?
No.
Oh,
Yes,
you do?
inventory, but I don't have any.
Oh, you don't have any?
I don't have any. There's been a couple iron deficiencies we've seen as of late. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
Or where around in the cities they've been, and they should be asking. But I am totally sold out. A lot of people are either using it as foliar sprays or and they're working it into the soil.
Okay.
And that'll actually give you back the iron pellets. Well, not like pellets, but just the ions of iron that are sit there, and they'll slowly release back and reestablish into the soil.
And adding compost or manure, helpful, not helpful?
Depends on the content of the...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like everything's made a little differently.
Right, but it's better to just go shock it with iron.
Yeah, if you've got a heavy iron deficiency like it looks like Jody does, or might, she's probably going to get better results with a quick, like a blast of a foliar spray, but also putting some more back into the soil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, Jody.
Yes, hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
And thank you for writing in. Yeah, thank you for sending us a photo. We've never had a photo before.
I know.
So
It's great to say. Like, it really helps. So thank you, everybody. Please keep that in mind that you can send us a photo.
That's right. Yeah. instudio101@gmail.com. Photos, questions.
Yeah. Design dilemmas.
Exactly.
You name it. We want to see the plants.
Pictures are worth 1,000 words.
That's right.
As we say on radio or on the radio. Speaking of questions, we've got Dawn. Dawn is writing in. Hi, Joanne and Matthew. Love the show. Thank you very much. And I do have another question about that tree bag. I see that the bags are only good for trees with a maximum diameter of 4 inches. Any bags available that you know of for full-grown trees, that is, trees with a larger diameter trunks, 12, 18, 24 inches? So you can go for it.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to just say, that I don't think they make a specific one for the individual bag. Is best for that 4, and I've seen them on 6 and 8 inch ranges, and you don't want to strangle the tree or get it too tight. However, as Joanne was mentioning earlier, the double zippers, one bag can zip to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 bags.
Yeah, so it ends up being, so Dawn, it's a little bit more expensive because now you got to buy 2 bags, but that's a solution, right? So you can zip this. So if you have, especially if you have a combination of mature trees and new trees, then if you have 2 bags, for the mature trees, you just zip the bags together.
Right.
And so it's a much bigger circle. I don't know that you'd have to fill it as...
You could.
You fill them both as much, whatever.
Yeah.
And well, it's a more mature tree. So, yeah.
Like I said, it probably does need that much water.
Yeah, it
just
probably
water
does.
to biomass.
Yeah.
But
So now you're watering 2 bags, like you're filling 2 bags, but they're now attached to each other. So it's one big bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen 5 put together.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was just around, kind of like what Dawn was saying, just like a bigger tree.
Yes.
And I think they were just kind of showing them off in the.
Oh, okay.
It was a botanical garden a number of years
okay.
ago. And
Yeah.
So, but it was pretty cool. But yeah, it's like $100
Yeah.
plus of bags.
So there you go, Dawn. I hope that helps. And it's true. Like especially if you've got a mix of a mature, sometimes your boulevard tree is much more mature, and your own trees in your yard are smaller. So you can have 2 bags, and then you can water your small trees, 2 at a time, and then your mature tree, or sometimes vice versa, right? If you're in a new subdivision.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'm glad that makes sense. Thank you for the question, Dawn. Thank you for listening, too.
Yes, thank you. And you only have 1 bag, right?
I do. I only have 1 bag, but I know we just planted one of my clients in Stouffville. We planted 22 trees. Now, most of them were kind of in the forest, some hemlocks and stuff, and into like native trees, into native forest, which I think would be fine. But the ones that are getting a ton of sun, so I actually, she has 4 bags. So I said, you need to keep moving these bags around, and that the irrigation also needed to remind her that the irrigation was for the lawn and not for the trees. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Definitely worth it. And if we have any contractors or landscapers listening, then it is worth throwing in or charging your client for including that in the price of your tree, that type of thing. So definitely. We're gonna have to get them as a sponsor. Honestly,
I know.
We're
gonna have
Seriously.
to do some homework.
All right. What other challenges do we have in the August garden?
In the August garden, I think one that we were talking about before, and we've seen a lot about recently, especially in social media, is weeds.
Yes.
And I think more specifically, we were looking and we're hearing a lot about...
Am I allowed to send an email? No, I'm just sending a photo of my weeds.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sure. But the dog strangling vine.
Yes.
Right? So we've got a lot of that going around. You can see it especially in the GTA. Going back, I was talking about in Chicago when I had gone a couple weeks ago. That was one of the things that surprised me, is I'm so used to in the GTA seeing dog strangling vine out just in our fields and along the roads.
They didn't have any?
Not a lick past Sarnia. I couldn't believe it. I have no clue. But I got
chemical. No, it's not. It's resistant to chemicals unless they've got something.
Right. Exactly.
All right. If you're in Chicago and you're listening, what are you putting on your dog strangling vine? It's probably killing you too. But anyway.
And to other U.S. listeners, do you guys have dog strangling vine?
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Please Google it if you don't know what it is. Give it a quick Google and let us know if you have it. It, several reasons why it's bad. I mean, one, it really does strangle everything out.
Yes.
2, it also is bad for the pollinators because it happens to be also in loosely related distant cousin of milkweed.
Yes.
And so it does fool the butterflies, and they will lay their eggs on it, and then the little caterpillars hatch and they can't eat it. Yeah. So it's bad that way. And the pods, when they open, are much like the milkweed, in that 1 pea pod size pod has millions of seeds in it, right?
Yes.
Like dandelion on steroids. So if you guys are worried about those dandelions going to seed, then oh my goodness, these are brutal. But they're fairly, until that happens, they're fairly innocuous. So people don't really pay attention. Yeah. And so I'm like literally now, like even on walks, I at least pull them out so that the pods don't open. But I was watching, there's a video online, Paul Zammit from the Toronto Botanical Gardens. Did you see that information video? Yeah. So everyone Google, especially if you're in the GTA or in Ontario, dog strangling vine, look up Paul Zammit or Toronto Botanical Gardens. He did a really good video. And so what they're recommending, because of course they've got tons of property there and they're in the middle of the city and they're having a hard time keeping up with it. And they found that it actually is better to cut it, which is what I've always said about goutweed too. It's just better to rob it of its photosynthesis, that pulling it actually makes more babies, right? Well, maybe babies, more babies. So that, I don't necessarily walk around around with a pair of scissors though when I'm dealing with the dog strangling vine out for a walk. But I may start carrying my little pruners with me.
Keep your little secateurs going.
My little. So that's something, just keep an eye on it. It grows between neighbors. It grows under fences.
The cracks in the sidewalks, along fences, everywhere.
Yes.
It'll get in there.
And it's not easy to eradicate. So it's kind of a team effort.
Right. And like you were saying, it is chemical resistant. So here in Canada, our Roundup will not work on the dog strangling vine. It is immune or nearly immune to Roundup. It barely phases it. Yeah. So it's that kind of an invasive weed. If we have the Japanese beetles in the insect world, the plant world has dog strangling vine.
There
right
you
now.
go.
It's that bad.
So that's why they're number 1 and number 2 on the August challenges of the August in the Garden episode.
Plants, insects, watering nature herself.
That's right. That's right.
So definitely, cut it down, pull off those pods. If you can't, if you got lots of it, just make sure that those pods don't go to seed. Just take them off, pull them off. And that's what I'm recommending as well to some of our other guests and other people that I've been talking to, because one of the other weeds we tend to see and deal with right now, especially in our lawn spaces, is our crabgrasses. Mm-hmm. So we see those go to flower as well. And crabgrasses are an annual grass, so unlike the dog strangling vine, winter will kill this one fairly easily. But she lets out lots and lots and lots of seeds. I've read where the counts are as high as 600 plus seeds per plant. And imagine the number of crabgrasses that you end up having. So as they tend to bloom and they come out and send out those little flower heads, they're kind of low. They get a little purpley as they open. That's the shade of the stems, and the flowers start to grow.
Right.
Just, take your little whippersnipper and just go out and just treat those little areas and just shave them off. Just turn it to 60-degree angle and just kind of cut them off and just let the whippersnipper. You don't have to grind out the grass. You don't have to pick it because the winter's about to kill it.
I know, but I find it... I guess I have some big patches in my lawn.
Yes, and that can be the challenge. Yes,
yeah, so I felt like I needed to kind of get down on my hands and knees and kind of pick it out because I think it does get ahead when it's so thick. And then when it does go to seed and then the lawnmower, I think that's what's happening, right? So then the lawnmower goes over it and then I'm spreading the seeds for next year.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I kind of disagree a little bit. We never disagree usually, but...
We never do usually.
Yeah,
but that's okay. We can disagree.
Yeah, we can disagree. But I think in some cases, although I have to say I was almost picking so much out that now I have bare grass in those spots.
Right. And now that crabgrass was out competing other weeds.
Yes.
And now those seeds may or may not start to take over. And they may be crabgrass. They may be something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was, I watered the area and just was really trying to pinch down and kind of pull, because they were baby. They were kind of baby crabgrass. It certainly hadn't gone to seed yet.
Yeah. They're little young ones. Yeah. And that's easy to take care of, is those little ones. Yep.
Well, not when there's that much of it, but okay.
It totally depends on what you've got.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing about the crabgrass is that we can treat it with what's it called? I know. Oh my gosh.
Corn gluten?
Thank you.
Yes.
No, but it's a pre-emergent.
Yeah, the corn gluten is a pre-emergent.
Isn't it pre-emergent something? Pre-emergent? No.
Oh. Not
just
that I know.
Okay.
I just call it pre-emergent herbicide. Is that maybe the word you're looking for?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So and I've heard people say, "Oh, I tried it once and it didn't work." But that's the thing with the corn gluten, right? Is you can't just try it once.
Right.
And I know I haven't tried it. I keep talking about trying it, but I haven't tried it. So when can we do it?
Yeah. Usually you're going to want to do it later in the season.
Okay.
So fall is the best time for our grass seed, for putting that down. So we're going to have a big season of growing new grass from seed. You can use it, the best time for crabgrass, late October. Okay. Putting it down just before we kind of go into winter. You want to kind of get it started in the soil, let it leach in, and then we're going to freeze over.
Okay.
As we wake up, it'll be in the soil, and we know the weeds are going to grow faster than the lawn. And that's the one reason we're going to go out on the lawn in the spring when it starts to get squishy, and we're kind of get that itch to get out there and rake stuff.
Okay.
We just want to put down the corn gluten before the forsythia.
Okay.
Right, because it actually ends up having a cumulative effect in the soil from the fall into the spring. So you get a stronger shield of it. And now it will kill anything. And this is why we don't want to do it like flat out in fall, because the seeds are going to germinate in the spring, and we want our grass seed to grow. So we have a nice shield and a barrier coming for the spring. So you can do it there in the spring. In general, with corn gluten, you can use it any time of year. Any time of year when seeds are going to grow. It's like you said, it was a pre-emergent. Yes. So any seed that opens and absorbs this corn protein, their roots are going to fail and they're going to die.
Okay.
So I like to say people have a very small yard. They're like, well, do I need this much? Okay, no, apply what you need to in your areas that you feel that you need. And if you know you're going to end up with some, and perhaps you go for a vacation, or you have weeds that grow into the garden, sprinkle it right in your garden. It's going to feed the garden, and your open soil areas are now have exposed to the corn protein for that 5 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
And those weeds will try, and it can help you reduce that in your garden.
You know what it just dawned on me too is you always associate a weed killer, quote unquote killer, with having to make contact with the foliage or the leaves of the plant to kill it. But this is an exception because it's the soil. So I think all along I'm thinking the corn gluten has to touch the leaves of the crabgrass, but that's not the case. We really want the corn gluten to just be absorbed in our soil. So you can use it in the gardens.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. That would be good. So there's no harm in putting it in your garden.
Nope, because it has no effect on established plants. And that's the one thing that people get confused about too, is you put corn gluten down, but if you've got a field full of dandelions, it'll prevent the seeds from coming. But the established ones, nothing will happen. The adults have already grown past the phase of the corn.
Or any other weed, creeping Charlie or something like that, that's already growing.
Right. Any seed that absorbs it. So throw it in your perennial garden. If you've got some little spaces are really tough, that you always get weeds in that back corner, throw some corn gluten down. 5 or 6 weeks, you've got a shield against it.
You're just trying to sell more corn gluten.
Sell more corn gluten. Can you tell I work at a garden center?
There you go. We need them as a sponsor too. So there you go.
So corn, so the corn gluten for the
Okay. So Howard has written in, and I think, Gary, you need to save this email for me. So thank you, Howard. He says, hi, love your show. Joanne, you are so funny. Thank you. No one else in my life thinks that. I can only imagine living in your neighborhood and the people see that you walking your dog saying, oh, no, is that weed lady? Hide. So, yes, I think.
You know what that reminds me of? I don't know if you've ever seen that English sitcom, what's that? Something Appearances with Hyacinth.
Keeping Up Appearances.
Carrying Up Appearances.
That's a great show.
Right? Did you ever see that? Oh, right. Oh, so and every time they see Mrs. Bucket, but it's Bouquet, right? They say, oh, no, it's that bucket lady, right?
Oh, no.
So I can only picture as well this guy saying, that's funny,
Howard,
when you're walking around, they say, oh, it's that water or weed lady with the water bags and the weed. Look out, close. They all run in their house.
Yeah.
They close the windows and the doors, right? Yeah. That's hilarious.
Well, my friends, because I was out for a walk with my girlfriend when we stopped to talk, and that's when I leaned over and I said, just a second, I'm like pulling out the dog strangling vine from where we were standing kind of thing. Yeah. And then my neighbors too, they laugh at me when I put the tree bag on their tree.
But the question is, do they use it?
They do, yeah. Once I tell them, they don't seem to, haven't quite caught on the fact that their tree is dying of thirst, and they call me and say, Joanne, can we borrow the bag? They haven't gotten them that far yet.
Okay.
But when I put it on their tree, they know to go and fill it up. So
good. I'm glad about that. Really.
Yeah, for sure. And I have another neighbor. We both had, I was saying my trees are so much farther ahead. So my next door neighbor on the other side has a ginkgo as a city tree, and the neighbor across the street has a ginkgo. Well, they got their ginkgos 2 years before I got my ginkgos, and you would never know it. In fact, mine is bigger. Like, it's the trunk and everything, and it is because of the water. So I did notice that my one next door neighbor, I thought, I really want to give him, loan him the tree. But then you're not sure if you're going to be that bully, right, Howard? Thank you very much. But, and then yet there's a house down the street that were too far away for me to bully, and they completely neglected their tree. And when I went for a walk on Sunday, their tree is completely dead.
That was the one that was replanted by the city?
Yeah, it was replanted by the city, 3 years ago. And so for 3
That's
years,
terrible.
they didn't do a thing. They never watered that tree.
That's terrible.
So yeah.
See, and people
so now that's their taxes, right? Like, that's a tree that's not shading their house. That's a tree that is not providing.
Waste of money.
and so now somebody's got to come and dig it out. Somebody's got to put in a new tree, and then, although I do kind of blame my city, because most of the cities, going back to the tree bag yet again, most of the municipalities, except for Pickering, I'm sorry, I will say that to Pickering, they provide you the bag with the tree.
Oh, wow.
Right?
See, that's great.
That's
Isn't
right?
that
awesome.
wonderful?
That's
And I
wonderful.
know I was in Brooklyn when a couple years ago I was doing an installation of a garden, and they had just finished losing all their ash trees had been taken out, and so they were waiting. They said, "Oh yeah, we're waiting. They've been all flagged now. We know they're coming any day now." Well, that day, doesn't somebody drop off instructions and a bag and said, "Your tree will be here in a few days. These are your instructions, and here's your bag." Hello, like, come on.
See,
Right?
that's a great
That
idea.
is that so that $30, $40 that it cost compared to replacing the tree
Yeah.
because it wasn't looked after, honestly.
When
The
when
savings.
when you had your trees replaced, regardless of a bag or not, did the city come around and leave like something in the mailbox or the door saying, we are replanting trees, could you please water it? Or
No,
see,
not at all.
So
Not
see,
a word.
this
I
is the
mean,
problem.
I just knew, right?
Yeah, of course you didn't know, but this is the problem. It's the same thing in this neighborhood. A lot of people assume because it's city property,
Yes.
and you can't blame them. It's city property. They say, well, it's nice to have a tree planted, and hopefully it's going to grow and let nature take its course. But they don't think they're responsible to water or do whatever. Now, the people with common sense
Yeah.
would do something, but I blame the municipalities because even if you don't have a tree bag, at least when they replace those trees, the little memo in each door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This, even though this is your tax dollars at work, we replaced it. It costs this and that. Can you please water, and give instructions,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
What is
I
so
agree.
hard to make a 500, 600, 700 copies of that and put it where they're replacing
That's
trees?
nothing. to
No,
them.
for
Nothing.
sure. Nothing. For
And
sure.
they don't do it.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks, oh, yeah, we got the tree replaced, but they don't think to water it.
Yeah. And I know a lot of, even cutting the grass, I know people do it begrudgingly and they think but the trees, the neighborhoods that are tree lined, the value of their homes, right? If you live in a street with tree lined, like mature trees, the value on your house is more.
Yep.
It depending on with the direction of the sun and the wind, you're saving yourself. That city tree, quote unquote, is saving you.
Right.
Cooling the house,
Yep.
warming the house in the winter, possibly, breaking up the wind. Like there's a lot of things that those trees do, and are they're not free. We are paying for them.
Yep.
So, all right. So
You
save
got
that.
it.
Save Howie's email for me. I'm going to frame that one. He thought it was fun.
I'll
so
save it
that's
for
great.
you.
Thank you. So anyway, there's a watering rant today, but lots of challenges in the August garden. And we know everybody, it's hot and tired, and I just want to soak and float in my pool too, or you want to stay inside in the air conditioning and read a book. You don't want to get out there. So, but there, I think things like the tree bag, things like staying on top of the weeds, being proactive with the
Corn gluten?
thank you, corn gluten, the traps, for the Japanese beetle. That's something like those are all things you can do that kind of work for you, right? So
Right.
that we're not having to be out there.
Right. Lower your maintenance and time
Exactly.
spent in the yard.
Exactly.
Yeah. Spend it,
Exactly.
but spend it favorably to you.
Yeah. So anything else? I think remembering to when it is cooler, our plants start to look a little tired. So, but many of them can be rejuvenated, right? Like a lot of the perennials can, if we trim them back. I was at a site visit prior to the show tonight, a garden we put in last year, and it's looking great. But her purple salvia, most of them were starting to kind of be done. So I showed her how you trim the stems. And I'm meaning to. I haven't done my own because I've been meaning to do a video of me doing it. So, but it's been too sunny
Yes.
and hot.
And hot.
But yeah, so so there's a lot of perennials that if you deadhead them, they will rejuvenate, and so you're going to get that second in August, especially late July. If you do that by August, you are going to get new flowers.
Yes, new flowers, even new foliage, things like
Right.
heucheras, right? You get that second layer growing up through it. The perennial cranesbill, there's a second layer that starts to flush up. Yep, so you can give them just a little haircut and look them good again.
Yeah, excellent.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. And what else can we do to help? We talked about the iron chelate. Should we be still? Do we need to fertilize or compost? Like, we're kind of past that, right?
Yeah. As we get into late August, we're going to start thinking about putting new soils, new compost as we get through into fall. And that's also more of a September thing as well. But you don't need to be doing the high nitrogen fertilizers and blasting them to them. Keep your annuals fed, with a high middle number of good phosphorus. Keep them blooming and looking okay.
I do have to say, one thing I do, like, we've talked before, I'm not a super annual fan, and I know everybody loves their containers by the front door, but I have to say, when I bought them, or I use a lot of perennials or shrubs sometimes, I mix it up every year of my things by the front door. But I know the annuals do need that fertilizer, and you have to remember, and because you're watering it so much, you're diluting it and stuff like that. This year I went with tropicals. I did the Dipladenia.
Dipladenia?
Yes. Honest to goodness, barely paying attention to it, totally dries out, ignoring it, and everybody's like, what the heck is that? And so, I put in, so I've got white ones, and I put in some spider plants, I put in a variegated ivy, green and white, I just went all green and white, and honest to goodness, very little attention. I think the least amount that I've ever paid. And I've watered that, like, I've even kind of like watered them out of guilt. Like, oh my goodness, I haven't watered these, but you would never have known it, like, by looking at it. So I think sometimes the tropicals are a little pricier.
Yes.
In the spring, when you're kind of comparing them to your geraniums or to your other annuals.
Correct.
And your begonias, that type of thing. Although, if you have shade, then definitely go for the begonias. But if you've got a hot, dry sun and you can't keep your containers watered enough, and looking good, then I think spend that extra money and get a Dipladenia, there's a couple others that have escaped my head.
I'm thinking like Mandevilla. There's some crotons.
Yeah.
All sorts. There's a wide range.
Yes, flowering and foliage. Yeah. Absolutely. Exactly. So shout out to the tropicals.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Another low maintenance. They come from climates which are hot and blazing and on and off wet and dry weather all the time.
Yeah, those cottage people, because honest to goodness, if everybody who has a cottage has to take their annuals and put them in the shade for the weekend and stuff like that, or they come home to dead plants.
Yep.
It's just, and then you feel like you're wasting. So you're spending a little bit more initially, but compared to the ones you're killing, go for it. So I think this show's been all about spending money, on the tree bag, on Japanese beetle traps, and now on tropical plants. But definitely, I'm shocked at how much easier it has been.
There you go.
Yeah, even compared to when I've done perennials and shrubs in the pot.
That's it. And remember, they're all tropicals. You can bring them inside for the winter. If you've got the space, you can, divide them up and bring them in. But you probably will. Yeah. You probably won't.
I probably won't. Yeah, I don't have enough because you still need sun inside, right?
You need high indirect light usually. Because most of the tropicals we get, they're grown under like a 50% shade cloth anyways.
Yeah.
Because when they're young, they'll freckle sometimes in growing in the direct sun like that.
Right.
But like you will, and as I will, like you will not bring them in, they're going to die anyway. So you may as well spend a little bit extra and have this beautiful, different, beautiful annual arrangement. So annuals don't have to be the ones that you, I think, fear.
Yes.
The high maintenance or dislike.
I don't fear them, Matthew.
You fear nothing. You fear nothing. Let's put that straight.
Well, I love my begonias, but well, when you've worked in a nursery for a long time, as you can attest, our garden center, and you have to move them like every other day, and you have to color block them, and you have 3 different sizes of them in cell packs and 4-inch pots and 6-inch pots or 12-inch pots, you kind of get tired of annuals.
You do. You do. It's they are a lot of work.
They are a lot
and
of work,
you haven't even
people.
planted them yet.
I know. Oh, goodness gracious. I can't believe we haven't had a lawn question. So as we're nearing the end of the show, we haven't had a lawn question.
That's
but
right.
Our lawns are dormant. There's no need to fertilize. Just chill, right? And we'll talk more about our lawns probably in our September in the Garden episode.
Yeah. September is going to be the best time to grow it, so we'll give you a good focus. And don't forget to check us out on your favorite podcast app, right? We do have some lawn episodes and some September in the Gardens as well that will do some lawn questions if you end up during the weeks where we're away.
Yeah, we've done quite a few. Yeah, some lawn episodes.
So take a look there, too.
Okay, excellent.
Sure.
Excellent. What else can we recommend?
What do we have left? What time do we've got?
I know.
We've got all these notes and all this wonderful information we want to share with you. But
yes.
we talked about watering deeply. I guess,
some stars. We always like to end or touch base on some stars in the August garden. So if you do identify with some holes, maybe, or where there's something's not blooming. I know the site visit I just did. She did have, now that she's seen it grow in after a year, she goes, I want more flowers, because the hydrangeas are late and stuff. So she said, what else can I put in the garden? So there's some August stars of the garden, right, that you've got for us?
Yeah. Probably an obvious one, Rudbeckia.
Right.
There are lots of different sizes. The Goldstrom, if you're used to that classic 4-foot Goldstrom, 4 foot by 2.5 to 3 feet when she matures.
Okay.
There's little Goldstrom now. So it's just a little dwarf one. It's about 18 to 20 inches tall and about 1.5 to 2 feet wide. And she'll do a nice border or mid-ground kind of color. Nice display.
Perfect.
One of the ones I like is Caryopteris. So it's a shrub. Nice blue flowers and silvery green leaves. Attracts the fall bees and some food for those butterflies and other things.
Excellent. And that kind of ties with butterfly bush. They tend to be very similar.
Very similar as your butterfly bush. Lots of color. Deadheading will keep them blooming.
Right. And just be patient with those in that they are dead sticks until July.
Yes.
Unfortunately. So they should be kind of at the back of the garden or something else blooming in front of them earlier in the season, right? So strategy, there's a little design tip for you. Strategy there.
There you go. Exactly. And much like our Rose of Sharon, right? They're beautiful.
Also beautiful, but
they like to sleep in.
Yeah. So that's a good way to put it.
Don't give up on them yet. Late to rise. What else do we have? Their sedums are going to start to come into play.
Yeah, and the ornamental grasses too. So, and the echinacea purple cone flowers. So, yeah, there's a lot that we can still, that's looking good. So go, if there's holes in your garden, kind of go for a walk around and see what's blooming in other people's gardens. Sometimes that's an easy way to see what are your neighbors growing. Not that you want to grow the exact same thing. Like if you see echinacea or purple coneflower growing in your neighbor's garden and you can go to the garden center, you don't have to get that same variety. They're available in pink, they're available in orange, they're available in red now.
Green,
I've got I've got a little orange one and a little red one, and I've got my purple ones. So, so you can get some ideas that way because it's growing in that area.
Exactly. Check out your local parks and botanic gardens too.
Yeah.
They'll always have lots of different and inspirational plants.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. I wanted to update you a little bit on the garden walk. Did you have it? I know. We can't wrap it up yet, right? But I hope that helps everybody with their August in the garden. If you have questions, you can certainly go to our website, my website at downtoearth.ca. We've done August in the Garden episodes the last couple of years, and we try to shake it up and kind of have a theme each year. But we may have covered stuff last year that we didn't cover this year. This year we kind of focused on the challenges. Yeah. So if you've got other questions, then please check out those podcasts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And you had an update for us on the garden.
Yeah. So I did. So the Garden Walk Buffalo, we've had Jim Charlier on the show a couple times. He was on last year prior to the walk. The walk was this past weekend. So sorry, everybody, you missed it. It's the last. So put on your calendar for next year, though. So it's the last weekend in July. This was their 25th anniversary, and I really wanted to go. And Jim's going to be on again because he did do a book. He and Sally Cunningham did a book, which was lovely, and I have a copy, and it's very, very, very good book. It's not just pictures, too. It's nice stories that go with all the gardens.
Nice.
So I was able to do a tour where we got to kind of see the preview. So we got to see gardens on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday prior to the garden walk. And the garden walk in the downtown core is definitely the weekend. But for the whole month of July, they have what they're called open gardens. So gardens that are a little further away from the city, more in the suburbs, like Hamburg and I'm going to butcher all the Buffalo suburbs, so I will stop there. But the gardeners will choose, that they're open Thursday evenings or Wednesday mornings or something like that. So then you can just kind of see the listing of the quote unquote open gardens and wander through them. And in most cases, the homeowners are home. Sometimes they're not. We had a couple where they left signs and notes on everything, but they were both working. So that was kind of cute.
That is cute.
So very eclectic, very different gardens at all different stages. So we got to see 4 private gardens on the Monday. We got to see, I think, 2 or 3 on the Tuesday morning. And then I spent the afternoon at the Frank Lloyd Wright Darwin Martin house, and that they just did a whole restoration of the house and gardens, and the gardens are officially opened the day before we got there. So brand new gardens. So 3 years, I think it's going to look amazing to see what they look like. And then on the Wednesday, we did get into Buffalo, and we had 5 homes on one street and 3 homes on another street. So the bus dropped us off, and we had, an hour to kind of wander around and look at the neighborhood and look at the back, what people did with their front and backyards, and really innovative tiny yards in many cases, a lot of concrete in many cases. And just what they did with them. So it was good. So like I said, I did share lots of photos on my Facebook page and a little bit on Instagram. And if I get organized and have time, I will share some more. Lots of interesting water features. You picked up something, a lot of garden and the art, a lot of garden in art in their gardens, a lot of whimsy in their gardens.
Yeah,
that type of thing.
Yeah,
definitely. So I think it was really, it's nice. It's a nice thing to do. And so I think I saw a lot of pictures of how busy it was this past weekend. And I'd like to try, as much as I definitely recommend going ahead of time on a tour and seeing things without the crowds, I think it'd also be fun to be in the midst of those crowds too. So highly recommended. I'm looking forward to having Jim on the show to talk about his book.
Yes, that'll be exciting.
And yeah, definitely go check that out.
Excellent.
So
I think we're at the very top of the hour.
I think so too. Gary's going to start the music, right? The guys are waiting. Gary's going to start the music anytime now. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Elise, Bob, Brian, Chris, Jody, Don, and Howard. Thank you, Gary, for producing the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this evening here at Down the Garden Path with Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
That's right.
On Reality Radio 101.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your host, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.